Alrighty. Howdy neighbors, and welcome back to Deluge Threnody of Crashing Waves. Last time, Karen got myrtle-urdled. At least I think she got myrtle-urdled. And then we continue. She paused, as though carefully measuring out the following sentence. That strange look in his eyes is so unmistakably crucial to his whole persona. It almost feels like it's a characteristic of a certain psychological type that's slowly emerging from within him. Ina was becoming increasingly grave, bringing down her voice to a level barely within the audible range. That behavior, I don't think it can be explained as a primitive attribute of the uncivilized mind. No, quite the opposite. We can see his type all around, in our neighbors, in random passerby, even in politicians and world leaders. I can barely make out her tired whispers. The short temperature. The temperature is what I almost said. Wow! The short temper. The decadency. These are all qualities of the future man. The fuck now? She stared at me in silence, as though she had just divulged something of the greatest significance. And though I didn't fully understand the thoughts Ina was trying to convey that morning, I was stricken by the seriousness that had come over her, as it was unlike anything she had previously subjected me to. Then she took out her phone. I'm sorry. Go cook your eggs. I need to make a few calls. And as I switched on the stove, I could hear her calling out to me from the bedroom. Oh, and Abe, please ask Rika to take you to the council library. I'm still interested in that appendix document that they keep there. Yeah, appendix document. I went looking for Rika as soon as classes ended. It didn't take me long to find her, hurrying through the hallway at a steady pace. Hey Rika, what's cooking? She chortled. I'm on my way to the pool. We're running double training sessions up until the regional championships next month. I love the music in this game. I feel like it needs a little more hype. She brushed aside her hair. You can walk with me if you'd like. Hell yeah! Yoink. And just as she was about to continue onward, she faltered, as though she just remembered something. So, you must be preparing for your big trip. I stared at her in confusion. Mai told me you'd be taking her to the beach sometime soon. You should have come to me first. I thought back to Sunday evening and the words Mai had drowsily muttered in my ear. Just a wild idea of hers. I don't care. We've been very tolerant of your little outings with Mai up until now. But if you're going to take her out of town, I insist she be accompanied by a chaperone. Hers were like hellfire. I guess you have someone in mind. For an unwed girl to go on a private beach outing with a man. I have my reservations with the whole situation. Never promised her anything. We could just cancel. However, I feel Mai is due for an excursion. And as I have some business of my own to attend to in Rybury, I'm willing to accompany the two of you. Hell yeah! Girl, let's go! Woo! Accompany us? Hell yeah! Wait, I forgot to say before I made that choice, didn't I? Fuck! Sure. Or my presence ruined the little plan you had in mind. Not at all. Fine then. I already made arrangements. Classes end early coming Thursday, so we can leave after school and be back before midnight. I'm sure we'll have a blast. Hell yeah. When arriving at the pool, I was still somewhat taken aback by Rika's sudden turnover of the occasion. But then I remembered my initial motivation for approaching her. Hey Rika, before I leave, I was wondering, there's something I need from the town council library. She tilted her head, a curious expression forming on her face. From the council library? Could you get me in? It isn't usually open to the public. What would you ever need from there? I just some old records. It's something for a history assignment. And I figure you owe me a favor considering how I'm letting you come to the beach trip. What the fuck, Abe? Abe deserves no bitches. Well, I could get you in, though we'd have to go soon. They're tightening security protocols after the whole attack on Ms. Voorhees. Did you hear about that? I did. We'll go this afternoon, after I'm done with my workout. Please meet me outside the council building in about an hour. I was met with the fresh scent of chlorine emanating from her hair. There you are. Let's get going. I have to be home in time for dinner. The entrance to the council building was rather sophisticated for a country town. Rika immediately went over to the receptionist, with whom she seemed to be on friendly terms, and received a small copper key, which she pocketed quietly. We were let through to the back rooms without issue. Wordlessly, Rika unlocked the nondescript door and led me in. Please don't get your hopes up. The municipal collection isn't actively curated. It's just a heap of whatever books the town gets its hands on. We began to brush the shelves, which appeared to have been crammed full without any system or catalog. I'll help you. What title are you looking for? It was an obvious question. It caught me completely off guard. Well? Don't tell me you've forgotten. Forgotten, yes. Can you at least tell me the name of the author? Who's called Spangler? You know what, the first aid came to mind, but it seemed to appease Rika. Spangler. Never heard of him. We searched silently for a while. I scanned the shelves one by one, paying special attention to any publication that appeared over 100 years old. As time passed, I could sense Rika growing increasingly restless. Zoning, restrictions on the construction of prefabricated cupolas, third revision. Annual report of Homeowner Association, the Gilded Bulrush. The amount of junk they keep here is appalling. They need someone to prune it all down. On the reproductional habits of fruit flies. What kind of person holds on to this trash? After a further 20 minutes of pointless browsing, she'd finally had enough. I said, Abe, I have to go home now. You can look further if you want. Here's the key. All the receptionists know that you're still in here. Thanks, Rika. Sorry for dragging you along for this. It's okay. She was smiling again. Just make sure you're prepared for a big outing on Thursday. I've sent Maya a message already. She's delighted. With a restrained wave of her hand, she exited the room. And I continued my hunt. After ascertaining I had been through each and every bookcase, I started anew, just to be certain. Suddenly I heard the door open, followed by a loud shuffle. Before I could turn around, a booming voice rang out. Great to see young people take interest in the art of politics. I turned to see an older gentleman who, apart from the distinct fragrance of liquor that surrounded him, appeared impeccable, and immediately I knew who I was dealing with. It was as though he emanated a certain aura that I could sense, even before he addressed me. It must be him, the man of whom Ina had told me every rumor. The illustrious Leopold, Marquis of Abbot. The library is the greatest resource we have. It's sad so very few people find their way here. Is there anything I can help you with? I saw no reason to lie to him at this time, and I knew he wasn't exactly partial to the church's dealings. I'm looking for the appendix to the theological inquiries into the Church of Abbot. Instantly his demeanor changed. He let out a short, throaty laugh. I could detect a captivated twinkle appear in his eyes. The inquiries about the Church of Abbot, you say? I believe I heard that name before. He looked over his shoulder. I suggest we go for a drink, you and I. Somewhere we could talk in private. Am I about to get kidnapped right now? Yes, so private. A public area. Delectable. So, I saw you come in with Cooper's daughter. She's a fine catch, that girl. Be wary of her father, though. He coughed out a dry chuckle. I remember what it was like to be young. Between the two of us. Let's say I haven't changed much since those days. He scratched his beard with an agonized gesture. Pretty women will always be my Achilles heel. So I've been told. Leopold had chosen a table away from the other patrons. You're 18, right? I nodded. I say out loud, let me order you a beer. I shake my head. He signaled the bartender by holding up 2 fingers. Anyway, about the document you were looking for. Sorry to tell you, it's been lent out. You're wasting your time searching. Lent out? That's right, the appendix has been removed, as they say in medicine. But tell me, what are you planning on doing with that thing? Give it to your girlfriend. Not at all. I need it for a school project. Well, that's a sign of great ingenuity. It's an interesting piece. It isn't requested much. I'd say people had all but forgotten about it. But then you came along. You mentioned it had been lent out. Lent out, yes, it has. That a long sigh. But lent out to me, to be precise. I was overcome with confusion. To you. I figured your girlfriend would have known, considering her father's position. She's not my... She really had you on a wild goose chase, looking for things that weren't there. She didn't know what I was looking for. The comment appeared to put him at ease. That's good, very good. Stay vigil. You don't have to tell the ladies everything. Keep them guessing. You're a stronger man than I. And he bent forward and lowered his voice discreetly. You must have heard the story, Abe. It was about a year ago. There's a guy we employed in our garden, on Sundays. Jan was his name. Jan wasn't from here, you know. But more importantly, he was a cigar smoker. My wife didn't let me smoke in the house anymore, so we'd often sit on the patio outside and smoke together. I didn't work my people too hard. You need to take your money. Enjoy life. He winked. Anyway, I was having a lot of trouble with your father-in-law. I was having a lot of trouble with your father-in-law Cooper back then. Sometimes I would vent about it to Jan, and that's when he told me about the church inquiry. He had been conducting some private research on his own, and had reasons to believe that the document contained compromising information pertaining to the history of the Church of Abbot. Personally, I'm more of a worldly man, but Jan was very much into these theological matters. He was a Catholic, like the priest of his group. So you can figure why he didn't like Cooper too much. As I had access to the council library, I promised I'd retrieve the appendix document for him. He suggested it contained enough information to cause a national scandal, that it would take down Cooper for good. Fuck, I have to decide who I want to be with based on who I fuck over? Oh no. This is gonna be exhausting. But it didn't. A self-deprecating smile appeared on his face. Well, he's still here, isn't he? You should know. I am a selfish man. I can figure. I went to the council to retrieve the document, but I declined to give it to Jan. I kept it in my briefcase, as I had my own plans with it. He fucking lost it. He lost the appendix! And I had it with me when the whole Stanford House affair occurred. You mean you lost it? Fucking dumbass! Oh my god. The document you lost at Stanford House was the appendix to the church's inquiries. Shh, quiet down. I never lost it, it was stolen. It was all a ruse, conjured up by these church people. It may have been a bit loose-lipped the day I found the document. You know, after a long day at the council, I like to come down here and drink a few glasses. I may have boasted my find here and there. Not much later, a call came. At our party, Air would be entertaining a wealthy donor that night. Cooper was happy to provide Stanford House, the most exquisite property in town, for the occasion. They wanted me to come right away. I should have known better, but I was in the best of spirits, so of course I attended. And they knew all my preferences. There was liquor and female entertainment, and somewhere during the night I must have blacked out. In Stanford House, of all places, beautiful, stately Stanford House. Did you know my clan used to own that manor? It was a residence of one of the lords of the Isle, whenever we visited Abbot. But my great-great-grandfather sold it to the Cooper family, right after the evacuation. He was hoping the church would take good care of it, that they wouldn't let it fall to ruin. I figure he was right. Ever since the reclamation, we've been trying to buy it back. First my father, then me, but to no avail. That snake Cooper knows how much we want it. And then he uses it in such a humiliating way to orchestrate my downfall. My position with an heir had become precarious due to the whole affair. As a democratically elected representative, they cannot remove me from my position right now. However, I doubt they'll keep me in the party when elections come. I just realized we're 18. And these, people in state are, fucking... they're giving us too much information on stately things. I don't know, it's weird to me. This is weird. And that Jan guy, whatever happened to him? Jan? He left shortly thereafter. One of his friends had something terrible happen to him, you know? Guy named Michael got killed on one of the farms. Most workers from his group returned to their hometowns after the incident, never to return. I reckon they'd seen enough of this place. Anyway, I never had a chance to look into the document. To be honest, I'd all forgotten about it until I found you two snooping around the council library. Your safest bet is that Cooper still has it, if he hasn't burnt it by now. Probably have to pry from his cold dead hands. I apologize, I'm a man of many flaws. I should have known women would spell my demise. those heavenly creatures. Life's a feast. You should enjoy while you're young. On my way home, I went by the town store to buy some salmon for dinner. Although selection of produce is predictably basic, we somehow managed to consistently maintain a quality supply of fresh fish. After briskly searing the salmon in a pan, I headed up to my room, intending to finally enjoy a quiet evening. But fate clearly had something different in mind. Ina in my fucking room. About to kill. Get away from me. Who let you in? Your father did. He was on his way out when I got here. Said I could wait until you're back. So how did the investigation go? You got the document. You've been spying on me. Until I brought up my meeting with the Marquis. How he had been notified of the appendice's existence, and how the church had conned him into losing both the document and his reputation. After I was done explaining, I got Ina staring into the distance, as though 1,000 dogs were turning in her... 1,000 cogs were turning in their brain. Okay. So Leopold's gardener, Jan, was the friend of the worker that was killed. Yeah, a colleague. I feel that may hold some significance. I have to try to get a hold of Jan. Before that, we should see if we can extract the appendix from John Cooper. Wait, what? Makes you think Cooper hasn't gotten rid of it by now? With Cooper, you can never be sure. Her voice sounded strangely muffled, as though she were chewing gum. The document holds historical significance to him. And there's one thing the church is keen on, its preservation. But in the end, there's only one way to find out. We have to break into the church's office! Girl! I feel like Jan's a bad influence. You think I'm coming on Thursday? No! No. I was so taken back by the bluntness in which she proposed the felonious deed that I was happy to have a valid excuse. Going to the shore with 2 girls? If you're inviting me along, never even came to mind. Ina, So let's do Saturday. You're done with work. Anyway, it's late and I'm dead tired. Thanks for dinner. You should know the next time that I'm not too fond of seafood. She was already out the door by the time I realized she had already finished more than 2/3 of my plate. Dick. The sun was blindingly bright that day. It shone its lazy beams into our carriage, which was empty save for the 3 of us. To get to the beach, we had to ascend a small flight of stairs, up over the concrete embankment that shielded the lower-lying islands from the water of the lake. So what do you think? Amazing, isn't it? It's so big you can't see the other side. Our very own sea. Rika sniffed. A sea, you call it. Oh, it smells rotten fish. I held my nose up in the air, but couldn't detect anything out of the ordinary. Mai continued speaking, unfazed by Rika's snide remarks. Isn't the sun nice? It's as warm as a summer's day. Rika, can we have ice cream later? I don't think there will be a vendor at this time of year. We can eat something in the village when the sun begins to set. Mai seemed entirely too excited to listen to her friend's words. Scouting in the neighboring town had sparked a childlike enthusiasm in her, the intensity of which made me wonder how often she had actually left the confines of Abbotsford. So first things first. The coach would like me to skip practice if I do a 30-minute workout down here. Anyone joining me? I began shuffling awkwardly. You're going swimming in October. I think I'll pass. Suit yourself. Rika bounded toward the shoreline. Then, in a graceful motion, she moved her dress, revealing a modest sports swimsuit below, before wading to the lake. Her fair halo of ripples propagated out over the glass-like surface. You should come in, the water's lovely. You can take a shower afterward to get that stench off you. I'd rather play on the beach. Rika waved one more time, and she was gone, swimming parallel to the coastline in a skilled butterfly technique. Why turn her attention to me? Not much of a swimmer. They tried to teach me when I was very young, but they say I never took to it. Are you afraid of the water? I'm not sure. Somewhere shallow is fine, like a swimming pool. But I wouldn't want to swim anywhere where I can't see the bottom. Fair enough. I looked over toward the water, where Rika was still tirelessly continuing her athletics. There was a beautiful symmetry in her strokes, and the way her endless hair, which she had failed to tie in a bun, trailed behind her in a black veil, gave her an otherworldly appearance. I stood mesmerized by the sight, as it invoked images of mermaids and nymph-like beings. Rika's wonderful, isn't she? Grace, I've never seen anything like it. Well, her parents did hire a personal trainer for her, you know. Without that, she'd probably be rubbish. She sighed. Rika is projected to take first place at the regional championships this winter. It's the nationals after that. The whole town will be cheering her on. That moment Rika dove down, continuing underwater for a good while, until she appeared again far out, waving at us, her head almost invisible against the indigo waters of the lake. She could stay underwater for more than 5 minutes. Isn't that amazing? I remember we were small. We would hold a breath-holding contests. Rika would always beat me. At times, she'd hold her breath for so long I began to panic, begging and pleading for her to start breathing again. She does have a sophisticated sense of humor, doesn't she? I giggled. Rika is the pride of the town. I'm delighted to be her friend. Most girls around here look up to Rika, though they don't always let it shine through. Where is she anyway? I have to admit that I haven't been paying attention. Not sure, probably still underwater. I stood and looked out over the lake for what felt like an eternity, but the waters remained without a trace. Rika! Rika! She'd surely gone under. It was now only a narrow window of time before it was too late. Rika! 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 The lake lay death-like before us. She's been under for more than 10 minutes. Who could survive that long? Possible, she's an excellent swimmer. Rika, stop playing games. It's not funny anymore. So the gravity situation truly hit me. Like a lead cylinder. Impact with my stomach like 20 knots per hour. If Rika had truly gone under, there was no hope she'd ever emerge again. It was over. Finished. It was intended to have been a pleasurable beach trip. It turned into the darkest possible tragedy. She would do. She isn't coming back. Dive. Look for her. Dive in? I really can't. Here's the impossible decision between her friend and her own well-being. The abstract terror was forming in May's eyes. But then, look in the distance. Sight immediately. A black dot, clearly discerned far out in the lake. It was rapidly traveling in our direction. It's gotta be her. How could we not? Rika, she's back. Casually, the dark-haired figure stepped out from the waves and slipped into her summer dress. Where were you, Rika? We thought you disappeared. Oh, I apologize. There's an interesting geological feature out there in the water. I felt like examining. It's a black granite rock, hidden just beneath the surface. At times, you can see parts of it sticking out from the waves. A rock. Recently, Mai seemed to have forgotten about our recent crisis, completely captivated by Rika's new find. I looked into the distance but saw nothing. There are lots of history surrounding that stone. It used to be a hazard for ships back in the days when this was still a sea. The fishermen would hit the rock. It could sink their vessel. Over the centuries, it racked up quite the death count, and eventually it became so notorious that it was given a name: the Humming Stone. It was said that strange creatures lived within the rock, who brought forth a mysterious whirring sound. They were dangerous too, as they feasted on the corpses of sailors that drowned there. Ridiculous folk beliefs, of course. But these things do amuse me. I wanted to ascertain if the stone was still there. I'm glad you didn't get eaten. How could you two worry about me? Are you doubting your champion swimmer? Mai was not happy. Rika and I spent the rest of the afternoon laying in the sun, while Mai scoured the shoreline for pretty stones. When the sun began to set, we headed up to the nearby town of Rybury. Rika took us to a small cafeteria where they served locally processed fish cakes. You like them? I nodded eagerly. Though fried in gratuitous batter, I could tell the fish were fresh and of excellent quality. It had a delicate, flaky texture, signifying a skilled preparation unusual for fast food joints like this. Mai sat chewing reluctantly on the piece of batter. They taste very local. It's okay if you don't like them, Mai. I'll order you some potato fritters in a minute. I like the sea. I don't really care for what's inside. These are made from saltwater cod, you know. They have to sail all the way past the great floodgates to catch them. There's still a fishing community down here. A very small one. The lake itself is mostly useless for fish, especially now with the quota on eels. But there are a few families that still sail up north. It feels like a fool's errand at times, but I guess it's what they do. To them, it's a matter of pride. Rika ordered another round of fish cakes and a plate of fries for Mai. After you two finish your meal, I want to show you something. Her mouth curled into a promising grin as she held up an... What is that word? Why are there so many words I don't know? The thing is that I can't spell, so I can't breathe. Innocuous? Let's go with that. Innocuous looking key. You should know by now that I'm very well connected. We followed Rika along the concrete embankment into something that looked like an industrial estate. She held still at one of the buildings, unlocking its heavy metal door. She switched on the lights. Whoa, what is this place? This is where the magic happens. Rybury Pumping Station. As the terrain of the marsh boulder lies below the sea level, Rainwater has nowhere to run off to and will inevitably flood the land. To prevent this from happening, all excess water is led to this station through an extensive system of drainage ditches. A high-tech centrifugal pump lifts up the water and jettisons it out into the lake. My father is deputy to the regional water board. That's how I have access to this place. Though this hall was draughty and uncomfortable, I felt a tingling sense of privilege as I stood above these giant machines. This whole building was vital to the well-being of thousands of citizens. We were fortunate enough to have unmitigated access. I love it here. It's so big. And a little scary. Look, the stairway leads down to the basement, where the pumps are. They replaced the machinery just a few years ago. Each pump now has a capacity of 150 tons per minute, which should be plenty for the coming decades. But still, you should realize that whenever you're behind the embankment, you're treading on a former seabed. A small rupture in the concrete embankment would expand quickly, causing all the waters of the lake to flow back in. Tria let out a compulsive giggle, sorry. Isn't that an arousing thought? Is Rika about to be... Something is going to go wrong. Something's going to go so horribly wrong. And I want it to happen already, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. You're safe while you're on Abbot, of course. The island still lies higher than the surrounding farmlands. Though I don't know how long it will last. They say our town is slowly sinking down into the soil. This place has seen the birth of the marsh boulder. It was the first of these stations built, you know. It pumped out the lion's share of the seawater. After the land fell dry, it was a putrid mess. You couldn't make it far before sinking away in the sludge. People had to wear boots with broadened soles, not unlike modern snowshoes, in order to make their way from town to town. And it wasn't long before the flies came. Swarms of them, multiplying rapidly in the former seabed, where they feasted on seaweed and rotten fish. It was the birth of a whole new ecosystem, where the fly population went unchecked. They had no natural enemies at the time. The poor inhabitants of Abbot were driven mad. Millions and millions of flies descending upon their little town, buzzing through the houses, smashing themselves against the window panes. It didn't take long for the pavements and windowsills to fill up with piles of dead flies. My great aunt still tells tales about how she saw children would play games with their corpses, stuffing them into each other's school bags, or crunching them up into balls, with which they had morbid snowball fights. That's disgusting. The seabed made for fertile ground. It didn't take long for all kinds of plants to sprout in the new formed soil. And as their roots spread into the mud, the ground gradually grew steadier, to the point where you could traverse in it normally on foot. Spiders spun their webs among the countless shrubs. And just as the insect population had initially exploded, the spiders reigned supreme, engorging themselves upon the endless supply of flies, often catching more than they could eat in a single summer. Rika smiled with a sadistic glee. Many islanders welcomed the arrival of the spiders, as their presence would finally put an end to the nuisance of the flies. But for some, it was my great aunt, who was wary of all things creepy and crawly. The circumstances became all the more dire. I noticed Mai was cowering silently. Due to the abundant prey, the spiders grew to unnatural sizes. Larger than the human hand, they would hang, legs outstretched, within their massive webs. My aunt recounts one traumatizing afternoon, when she was sent down to the cellar to retrieve a bowl of cured herring. It was dark down there, and she didn't have a light. God, this is about to be just awful. She carefully made her way to the large, brine-filled barrel that stood far in the back. I can't read. Then we should raise the lid. I don't want it. Out crept two humongous hairy. Where's IE? Sorry. Maya stood, petrified, her eyes open wide. Please stop, Rika. You know those stories frighten me. I'm sorry, Maya. I forgot how sensitive you are. Rika mumbled soothing words as she sat and comforted Mai. And I could tell she was concealing a silent mirth. We played a game of hide-and-seek to indulge ourselves on Mai's seemingly endless supply of peppermints. It wasn't long before it turned completely dark outside. Rika let out a theatrical yawn. It's getting late. We should probably be heading home. As I mentioned before, I have some private business to attend to in Rubery. It will only take a minute. Could you two go ahead to the railway station and wait for me? I'll catch up with you in time for the 10 o'clock train. As we walked over to the embankment, back to the train station, it was as though I could detect a very slight fragrance of burning meat in the air. I figured it was the beachgoers who had lit a bonfire. I looked over toward the water. I could indeed detect a small fire burning in the distance. I don't want her to be a killer. I don't want it in my show. I don't want it. No. On Saturday afternoon, I met up with Ina outside of the Ichthi's House of Prayer. This is the Church of Abbot's headquarters. They host a worship center and an adjacent office complex. I don't want to do this. The plan is we head in, grab the appendix document, and then we're out again in less than 10 minutes. Is everything clear? No. Constitute a felony. It sure does. But I've implemented some safeguards. The church itself is open to visitors until 8 p.m., so as long as we're just looking around, we're not breaking any laws. However, they probably keep their valuable documents somewhere inside the administrative offices. As soon as we venture further, we'll be engaging in breaking and entering, which is a crime. Anyway, it's dinner time now. Most clergymen are at home with their families. And if we get caught, then we'll tell them we're high school students who are searching for the meaning in their lives. We may get scolded, but then again, they can't go too hard on repentant sinners. Come on, let's go. Try to appear interested in 17th century religious architecture. I'll try. I don't like this. Chrissy, I don't like this. On our way inside, we passed a small booth where the church warden sat. Ina placed some money in the glass donation box that had a prominent place near the entrance. The man nodded at us. The church itself was deserted save for an organist who was rehearsing for tomorrow's service. This is it, the devotional heart of the town. I'm afraid there isn't much to see in here, apart from the organ. The history of this place goes back a long time, you know. It used to be a Catholic church, with a far more ornate interior. But during the Reformation, all the statues were smashed, and the decorations were removed. People of Abbotsford practiced an austere? Fuck, I can't read. Austere. I'm gonna go with that. Devotion. Were large displays of... Oh my god. Ecclesiastical? What the fuck is that? I can't even begin to figure out what that is. Something wealth is frowned upon. But that doesn't mean the church isn't wealthy, you know. They sure are, considering all the properties they own. They just don't feel the need to parade their riches. Anyway, it's time for us to make our move. If we stay here for too long, the warden will grow suspicious. Anna grabbed my arm and led me toward the non-distinct wooden door, hidden away in the walls of the church. From her pocket she produced an elongated iron wire, the end of which she had carefully bent into a small hook. Quietly, she inserted it into the door's keyhole. I don't want it! I don't want it! Fuck! I don't want it. You appear to be a seasoned burglar. Not really, but I've been looking it up on the internet. These old locks should be so simple that even a child could open them. The minute click, the door gave way. I love the blues. The blues are so nice. The church annex was dimly lit. Attempting carefully not to make a sound, we descended the tall staircase. Remember, we're just looking for a youth pastor to talk to. We're seeking inner enlightenment. Do wayward souls carry lockpicks? Let's just maintain the door was slightly ajar. There should be 2 offices downstairs. Oh my! This is not what I was expecting. Stairs led into a dark hallway. And the most cheerful work environment. Anna pressed her ear to one of the doors. After confirming it was empty, we entered the room. To find a whole slew of people. Oh. All these books. Looks like we struck gold. This be John Cooper's study. Immediately, we started browsing through the piles of paperwork. As expected, Cooper's library is mostly theological in nature. It was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Church Dogmatics, Volume 12? Compendium of Theological Hermeneutics? The Belgic Confession. Why is nothing kept in order? It should teach this man a system. His daughter's pretty tidy, I'd say. Maybe she takes after her mother. Continue searching, appearing to be growing more frantic by the minute. I was sure the Marquis wasn't lying to you. He doesn't have a good reputation, you know. I bet he was drunk at the time. I can't deny that. But even then, Mrs. Cooper doesn't just burn the documents after he obtained them. There's no use keeping them around if they're so incriminating. But you said... I froze. For over Ina's frustrated whispers, I suddenly detected a strange noise that was coming from the room next to ours. It was a hesitant gurgling, that bubbling just within the audible range. Something distinctly guttural to it. I pressed my ear against the wall, trying to get a better gauge of the sound, when suddenly... Hey, I've got it. Appendix of Theological Inquiries. Let's get out of here. She clasped her hand over her mouth, realizing suddenly how loud her voice had sounded in the deathly silent office. She resumed in a hushed tone. It was an ancestor, which was childishly simple to break open. That's great, Ina. But listen, can you hear that sound? She grew quiet. They listened closely. It seems to be coming from the room next door. Come on, let's go check it out. Is it Leviathan? Please be Leviathan. I want to see him. See him shine. It's probably going to be like the fucking restroom. We exited the room. On her tiptoes, Ina headed toward the adjacent door. Should be someone in there. I can hear a voice. It sounds heavily distorted, as though in agony. Come on, Ina. We should leave. If we have what we came for. Just let me listen for a second longer. I'd love to get a recording. What do you think you're doing down here? Oh! I didn't even realize that there was a man! Oh, that scared the crap! Cultist! Ina jumped, while dropping her papers in the process. A figure had appeared at the end of the hallway. It was angrily making its way toward us. Almost mechanically, Ina called out her alibi. We're looking to speak to a youth pastor. She already grabbed me by the arm, dragged me up the flight of stairs. Though the door had led to the main chapel. We sped walked past the warden, who, though clearly oblivious to the whole affair, stared at us in amazement as we set off over the town square at Olympic speeds. So they're a cult. Nice. Ina led me on detours to make sure to shake off our imagined pursuers. It was more than half an hour to get to school. We sped through the alleyways, jumped a hedge, spent time hiding behind a dumpster, cut through the woods, till we eventually reached the school grounds via the east gate. As Ina had ascertained that we weren't being followed, we entered the building. Though my newfound profession had measurably increased my general fitness over the past few weeks, I was unaccustomed to the sudden outburst of physical exercise that had just been demanded of me. Fully at the end of my tether, I collapsed into a chair. They really had it out for us there. They must have some hidden secrets for them to be so wary of visitors. Well, we were trespassing. Ina, who appeared rather unfazed by our close escape, took out her captured documents and began paging through them intently. Addendum to the Journal of Reverend Thomas W.H.H. Bagger. Drink some water before I keep going. Because it's going to be lore heavy. Oh yeah. Monday, the 20th of September, 1856. Due to the extraordinary circumstances that have arisen during my inquiry of the proceedings of the Church of Abbot, which will be elucidated upon further herein. These pages shall serve as an appendix to the journal that I have submitted prior to the Presbytery of the Low Countries. Given my circumstances, I did not feel at liberty during my visit to commit to paper those occurrences that I have witnessed upon the Isle, the sheer distressing and even blasphemous nature of which will immediately become apparent to the reader. In a clear throat. Cool. Let's go, baby. Cultist. Calling it right now. Cultist. As described in the paragraphs previously divulged, my initial welcome and contact with the Reverend John Cooper was cordial and without notable event. It was not until the third day of my arrival where I became aware of a certain behavioral eccentricities within both the Cooper family and the community of Abbot at large. They were not immediately apparent. These anomal manifested itself as a creeping awareness, a palpable sensation, as though I were not fully alone during my stay on the isle. Whenever I went, there was a mystifying presence that gradually grew more discernible. It could take the form of a muted giggle, or a glimpse of black hair, dashing away in my peripheral vision. But whenever I tried to confront Hendrika with her strange behavior, she would act coy, evasive even, avoiding my glances. And there was more, slightly alleviating the annoyance of the constant espionage, though nonetheless unsettling. There was a particular, habitual occurrence within the town that immediately drew my attention. For every evening after dinner, when I would retreat to my room for prayer and meditation, I noticed the entirety of the island became shrouded in a deathly quiet, as though every living being had disappeared from the face of the earth. The streets below would be without stir, and even within the manse itself I could detect no trace of the Cooper family. These absences would always start before 7, and never lasted for less than an hour. After picking up on the regulatory of these intervals, I would utilize them to embark upon walks around the desolate town, as even my dark-haired sentinel appeared to be absent during this period of time. It was on a Wednesday evening, during one of those walks, that I first noticed the distinct fragrance of smoke coming from the dunes. With my interest piqued, I cautiously headed in the direction whence the scent came from. As I drew closer, I ascertained that it originated not from the dunes itself, but from the beach beyond, whereupon a great bonfire had been ignited. I had already entertained the notion that the inhabitants of Abbot held a covert observance in the evening hours, and my heart jumped when I finally beheld the large crowd of people that had gathered upon the shore. With the bright flames casting elongated shadows over the chalky sand, the assembly made a haunting scene. For upon the bonfire lay a carcass of a sheep not raised above the flames but placed directly upon them, so that the great fire emanated from the carcass, sending the smoke and the stench of burning flesh up into the sky, to be swept away by the evening breeze. Taking shelter in the dunes, as not to be discovered, I continued to observe the haunting spectacle. Though most of the winds blew out to sea, some of them blew to land, and although these gusts were infrequent and far between, during those times I could clearly make out Cooper's voice. He was preaching a sermon upon the shore, his voice drenched in a fervor and devotion that had been absent during that observance I attended on Sunday morning. And just as I arrived, the Reverend led the congregation in prayer, and the people spoke in unison, so that it was clear for me to hear. These words were commonly referred to as the Song of the Sea. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his host hath he cast into the sea. His chosen captains also are drowned in the Red Sea. The depths have covered them. They sank to the bottom as a stone. And in the greatness of thine excellency, thou hast overthrown them that rose up against thee. Thou sentest forth thy wrath, which consumed them as stubble. And with a blast of thy nostrils, the waters were gathered together. The floods stood upright as a heap, and the depths were congealed in the heart of the sea. After this communal prayer, the Reverend resumed his sermon, and he spoke in enthused vehemence What I could make out were his words alluded to the most ancient parts of the Pentateuch, and even arcane Talmudic texts that were completely foreign to Christian scripture. And I heard him utter blasphemous monikers, such as these belonging to the great serpent Leviathan. And he spoke his name with such exalted reverence that it were as though he were heaping praise upon the beast. And he spoke more blasphemous and unholy names, many of which I had not seen in any text, religious or profane. And the name I distinctly remember crossing his lips was that of a certain Lotan. And he described Lotan as infinite, as being without end. And during his sermon, the carcass burnt, and it burnt fast and hot, and for it had much fat on it. And when the carcass had been reduced to ashes, 2 members of the congregation came with shovels and swept the ashes in the direction of the sea. And as they swept the burnt remains toward the water, Reverend Cooper raised his hands, much like he had done on that tempestuous afternoon when I arrived 4 days ago. And he spoke a blessing onto the waters. It was at that moment the sea rippled in frantic rage, and a large wave rose up over the shore and swept away the remains of the charred carcass, which I deduced must have been a burnt offering, as was custom in Noah's days. And thus the beach was wholly clean again, and there was no evidence for the morning tide to lay bare. The Reverend led the crowd in a solemn chant. He who coils through immeasurable depths, he who traverses impenetrable darkness, Lotan, Lotan, ill without end. And they repeated the incantation many times, but I had become nauseated to my stomach from the decadent display of depravity that I witnessed upon the shore that night. Highly distraught, I returned to the manse. It was on till. Okay, that scared the crap out of me, and I'm gonna end the episode there. Holy shit! Alrighty. Well, thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you later. Oh my god.